Absolutely. So you guys have done a really great job giving us advice and things we should do. But we have a question from Pamela here who says, can you share a cautionary tale? Maybe from a former life when you were working elsewhere or in your current positions, a cautionary tale of an example where, in your experience, perhaps the data was misinterpreted or not used properly, or something from your perspective that kind of is a good kind of cautionary tale to take into account.
Renee, we don't get anything wrong. I mean,
Oh, I know, I
I
know.
mean, I don't know about Elaine and Rachel, but we never get it. We never get it wrong. I won't, I'll give you a very short one, I hope. We're on TV a lot. We're on digital advertising a lot. It's a, demand response play, obviously, to get people who everyone has to eat, and customer research, no one knows what they're having for dinner tonight. Actually, is the majority of you don't, because that's what the data says. So I believe it. And I don't know what we're having for dinner tonight here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So I think it's, again, colors the data. We had a campaign that we ran, I won't tell you which one, in the last X years, where the data said, and again, good track record, data said, hey, this is going to be big, right? And in our industry, like a lot of retail, 1 or 2 points of comp in a year is pretty good growth when you're 60 years old, right? So this was supposed to be a much bigger lift, and I'm the finance person, so I'm like, you sure it's that? Wrestled around with it, and I got convinced, and I'm skeptical, right? It's going to be big. Was not big, okay, and that's okay, It doesn't make me want to rely or partner any less with the insights folks, the marketing people, et cetera. And we obviously did a postmortem and tried to figure out why we had missed. But you're gonna miss. And again, old adage, right? If you hit every one, then we're not taking enough risk. We're not running fast enough. And I'm kind of worried about people sandbagging on you and things like that. So again, without telling you which one it was, you guys can guess later for your favorite ads and campaigns that we've had. But you're gonna miss, and you know what? That's fine. It is what it is. Try to learn from it, and course correct going forward.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great attitude. And one of the things I teach too is reverse engineering from these failures, right? Levi's coming out with the Levi's suit was a failure, but it led to Dockers. So, some of these experiments can bear fruit further down the line. Elaine?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on this one too. I alluded to the Amazon leadership principles. One of them is learn and be curious. And with that goes the willingness to experiment, the desire to experiment, and failure is okay. Now, another leadership principle is be right a lot, but failure is okay. You want to be right more than you're wrong, but the important thing is that you learn from the failure. And another sort of construct we use at Amazon to help us filter these decisions is the concept of a one-way door versus a two-way door. And in thinking about an experiment or an action that may fail, thinking about, is this a two-way door where if we fail, what's the worst that happens and can we reverse course? Or is this a one-way door where we have so fundamentally changed something or invested so much that there's no going back? And then that helps us calibrate our appetite for the ability to withstand the possibility of failure and to assess the risk of the experiment. So that's just another kind of framework we use to think about it, but we encourage failure, because if you're not experimenting and learning enough to fail less than you succeed, but to fail, then you're probably not thinking big enough in terms of your experiments.
Well said, well said. I mean, experiments can be a little scary because you don't know what's going to happen, but that's the whole point of an experiment, right? But we do know that past behavior is more predictive of future behavior, so experiments are powerful for managing risk. So thank you for those responses. I have a question from Vanessa. Can you share some examples of how you look to launch new businesses? what types of processes or metrics do you look at in helping drive a decision?
I can give two thoughts. One is Etsy is pretty much one business. We're one big marketplace. However, we did make an acquisition a year ago of a second marketplace called Reverb, which is basically the Etsy of musical instruments, based in Chicago. And we loved the asset because it had very similar characteristics to the Etsy marketplace, and we had a lot of experience running a marketplace. So for instance, all of this experimentation that we've been talking about, they weren't doing as much of that at Reverb. So they were flying a little blind with launching products, whether to know that they were going to be accretive to the sales or dilutive to sales. And they were also a little bit cash constrained. So they were pulling back on marketing that might have had high ROI dollars, where we knew we have a very evolved model for measuring return on our marketing spend. And we knew that we could turn that spigot on and get that, help them grow through that. So what we brought to the equation were our core competencies to a model that felt very similar. We knew what we were doing. We have not integrated them fully. So we have, they run their own payments platform, and they run their own ad product. And so we haven't brought those things together. Ultimately, maybe there's some places where we can start to get more of I call it platformatize some of the things that Reverb does that Etsy does. So we have that sort of in the back of our heads as well as future opportunity. But we were looking for how aligned could we be on what we do best with what this other business was, what this other business was operating in.